Hello guys, welcome to Disaster Management Complete Syllabus Explanation Series Part 3. Mass distribution of disinfectants. The mass distribution of tablets, powder, or liquid disinfectants should only be considered in these conditions. Affected persons have experience in their use. Affected persons can receive training in their use immediately after the event through a vigorous education campaign. Appropriate water storage containers are distributed. Public health or community health workers assist in ensuring the appropriate and continued use of the tablets. A distribution network is in place to ensure a proper and continuous supply as needed through the emergency phase and in the early rehabilitation phase. In general, individuals in small and controlled groups may be given such disinfectants to purify small amounts of drinking water for 1 or 2. Every effort should be made to restore normal chlorination, and to protect individual wells and storage reservoirs. This can be accomplished by sealing cracks in well casing and reservoirs' roofs, providing adequate drainage around wells and roofing reservoirs. Food safety. Poor hygiene is the major cause of food-borne illness in disaster situations. Where feeding programs are used, as in shelter or camps, kitchen sanitation is of utmost importance. Utensils must be washed in boiled or treated water, and persona/hygiene should be monitored in individuals involved in food preparation. Food supplies should be stored in containers that will prevent contamination by rodents or insects. Refrigeration may have to be in basic sanitization and personal hygiene. Many communicable diseases are spread through fecal contamination of drinking water and food. Therefore, every effort should be made to ensure the sanitary disposal of excreta. Emergency latrines should be made available to the displaced, refugees, relief workers and residents in areas where toilet facilities have been destroyed. Even if toilets are physically intact, they cannot be flushed without a water supply. Lime should be used in communal trench latrines to reduce the development of methane gas and odors. If no sanitation facilities are available, people should bury their excreta. Personal hygiene tends to decline after natural disasters, especially in densely populated areas and where there are water shortages. The following measures are recommended. Provide basic washing. Provide washing, cleaning, and bathing facilities. Make adequate amount of water available. Avoid overcrowding in sleeping quarters. Launch education campaigns on personal hygiene, basic sanitation, and waste management. Waste water from camps for refugees and displaced persons, field hospitals, feeding centers, washing facilities, etc. requires proper disposal. The most common means is through a soak-away, seepage pit or absorption trench. Solid waste management. Solid waste management often poses a special problem in emergency situations. In the aftermath of disasters, authorities not only have to deal with refuse and garbage, but also with debris from buildings, utilities, trees, plants and dead animals. The rapid commencement of debris removal is very important for the rehabilitation efforts. Clearing roads, for example, not only re-establishing access routes, but also has a positive psychological impact on the population. Sanitary disposal of refuse and other waste is also the most effective way to control vector-borne diseases. Garbage collection should be re-established as soon as possible in stricken areas. Burying or burning organic solid waste is recommended and open dumping should be avoided. Carcasses awaiting burial should be sprinkled with kerosene to protect them from predatory animals. Burning large carcasses is difficult unless special incinerators are built, which require huge amounts of fuel. Heavy equipment will be necessary for debris removal owners, solid waste collection, and operation of the disposal site. Pre-emergency arrangements with private equipment owners may facilitate their services. The general public should be advised on sanitary waste handling, where no services can be provided such as burning or burying refuse in yards. Established disposal sites might be inaccessible or unusable for prolonged period, and new sites may have to be established. Great care must be taken in selecting these sites, since once disposal commences in an area, it often becomes a permanent dump site. Building debris can be used to improve access roads or in other areas where infill is needed. Other bulky materials should be flattened using bulldozers, if available. Special care must be taken when disposing of hazardous materials. Potentially hazardous waste be safely stored in a place where it can be retrieved later for proper identification, recovery, treatment and disposal. Vector control. Control programs for vector-borne diseases should be intensified in the emergency and rehabilitation period, especially in areas where such diseases are known to be endemic. Of special concern in emergency situations are leptospirosis and rat bite fever, dengue fever and malaria, typhus, plague. In flooded areas, rats will escape their burrows and search for dry hiding places, often in dwellings. Flood waters provide ample breeding opportunities for mosquitoes. Dead animals and other organic waste provide food for rats and other vectors. The following are essential emergency vector control measures. Resume collection and sanitary disposal of refuse as soon as possible. Conduct public education campaigns to eliminate vector breeding sites in and near the home and on measures to prevent infection, including personal hygiene. Survey camps and densely populated areas to identify potential mosquito, rodent and other vector breeding sites. Eliminate vector breeding sites permanently by draining and filling in pools, ponds, swamps, overturning or removing receptacles, covering water reservoirs and carrying out sanitary disposal of refuse. Resume indoor spraying if used earlier as a routine control method in flooded areas. In areas where typhus is known to exit, apply residual insecticide powder to louse infested persons, their clothing and bedding in camps and temporary settlements. Store food in enclosed and protected areas. Well-organized control of mosquito breeding sites greatly reduces the need for outdoor spraying, but if surveys show it is needed, local resources should be employed. Consideration should be given to the high cost of outdoor spraying and its limited benefits. Vector control measures should be associated with other health measures, such as malaria chemoprophylaxis, to reduce or eliminate the risk of infection. Successfully controlling houseflies and rodents is nearly impossible in the early aftermath of natural disaster. The only acceptance measure against such pests are environmental sanitation and personal hygiene. Burial of the death. The health hazards associated with cadavers are minimal. Especially if death resulted from trauma, corpses are quite unlucky to cause outbreaks of disease, such as typhoid fever, cholera, or plague. If human bodies contaminate streams, well, or other water sources, they may transmit gastroenteritis or food poisoning syndrome to survivors. Despite the negligible health risks, death bodies represent a delicate social problem. The normal local method of burial or cremation should be used whenever possible. Burial is simplest and the best method if it is ritually acceptable and physically possible. Cremation is not justified on health grounds, and mass cremation requires large amounts of fuel. Before burial or cremation, bodies must be identified and the identification recorded. In many countries, certification of death or an autopsy must precede the disposal of the body. Incorporation waiver paragraph into legislation governing disaster situations should be Public information and the media. Besides specific measures already mentioned, public information should be disseminated about available environmental health services and resources, their location, which authorities should be notified of specific problems. This helps the public to understand the extent of the emergency, reduces confusion and improves the effectiveness of emergency environmental health activities. The media will play an important role in providing such information to the public. It is essential that authorities and media practitioners have a common understanding of the objectives of information distribution, as well as their respective roles in the disaster. Pre-emergency meeting or seminars to clarify these roles and responsibilities are strongly recommended. Health after disaster. The term disaster derives from the Latin dis again and astra ver stars and is translated as the stars are evil. While there are many definitions of disaster, a common feature is that the event overwhelms local resources and threatens the function and safety of the community. It may be either natural or man-made or a combination of both. Example are natural impact events like tornado, cyclone, flood, seismic disturbances leading to earthquake, volcanic eruptions and or tsunami, natural progressive events like epidemic, floods, drought, etc. Man-related events like major vehicular or industrial accidents, major fires, terrorism and war including biological one. 3 most common consequences of disaster are: it presents a serious threat to the status of health of the community. It results in the presentation to a healthcare provider of more causalities or patients in number, type or degree than it is staffed or equipped to threat at that time. The loss of services, which prevent a healthcare facility from continuing to care for its patients. Magnitude. The physical effects of disaster are usually obvious. Tens or hundreds or thousands of people lose their lives. The survivors suffer pain and disability. Homes, workplace, livestock and equipments are damaged or destroyed. Infrastructure failure, computer crashes, staff shortages and patent overload, all too frequently threaten the quality of services. No matter how hard we try, it is impossible to eliminate all disaster or problems that lead to While the infrastructural damage from disaster is greatest in industrialized countries, more than 95% of all deaths caused by disasters occurred in developing countries. Infants and young children are more vulnerable to various diseases and malnutrition, leading to high mortality unless immediate actions is taken. The diseases commonly seen during this time are pneumonia, diarrheal diseases, malaria, measles, malnutrition and emotional problems. Other diseases seen are plague, influenza, etc. Factors influencing health. Overcrowding and poor shelter, increasing risk of rapid spread of diarrheal diseases and measles, malaria and ARI, risk of hypothermia in infants due to open-to-sky shelter. Poor sanitation, hygiene and contaminated water supply, lack of soap and water and clean protected container to carry them. Breakdown of health survives, increasing the risk that the children have missed out on immunization, non-availability of treatment of common illnesses, inadequate solid waste disposal, increasing the menace of flies and mosquitoes, disturbed and contaminated water supply, breakdown of drainage system, because of cyclone, earthquake and failure of electricity. Animal during such upheavals, even animals' populations are displaced and they rush to human habitations carrying with them diseases. Animals even sweep through refugee settlement, adding to dirt and unhygienic. Rats and such reptiles are often seen after earth. Generation of extra waste. Remains of the relief rush to the affected areas generate extra waste, such as plastic, bottles, cans, used food packets, papers, clothes, etc. Large amount of leftovers plastic, if embedded in the soil, may in due course lead to problems with crop productivity and soil percolation, and may play havoc in natural and artificial drainage of the area. Disposal of dead bodies. Dead could be rearing its ugly head from deep beneath debris of collapses structures. Invisible under the mass rubble and such structures, thousands of bodies first decompose, maggots and soil bacteria feasting on them, causing the threat of epidemic. Not properly disposed of bodies being feasted upon by dogs and vultures and such other animals. Traditional burning puts pressure on wood resources and adds to air pollution. Inadequate food supply and storage. This increases the risk of malnutrition and susceptibility to infectious illnesses. Food may be contaminated with fungus and bacteria or may be rotten and fermented. Change of environment increases the risk of malaria due to migration to endemic zones and having low immunity. Vulnerability to physical injuries, especially in children, elderly persons and pregnant mothers. Social, emotional and physical problems, family separations, displacement, violence or abuse and physical loss of lives and livelihoods. Large-scale emergency surgeries. Such surgeries being performed in makeshift medical centers also emerges as an issue of serious concern. Sleep conditions cannot be maintained, and there is problem of biomedical waste and its disposal. Electrostatic charge. Through not conclusively proved yet, many scientists have found that earthquake brings with them electrostatic charges from the ground that results in charges in atmosphere that adversely affects health of human beings and animals. In a study of 1,906 common problems, narrated are nausea resembling motion sickness, heart pains, and giddiness. Lack of financial resources at personal level, loss of living place and working place, physical disability, loss of earning members of family, etc. lead to inability to spend on health.